Welcome to another edition of the Career Series Podcast, where we highlight diverse careers and the people shaping the future of aviation. I am Misty Peña, your host. We're excited to journey across the globe and welcome Josue Gonzalez, the ICAO Regional Officer of Air Traffic Management and Search and Rescue in Mexico City. Can you first tell us, what does ICAO mean?
Good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone that's listening. And Missy, thank you. It's truly an honor to be here and be a part of this process. So what is ICAO? ICAO is a governance. It's based out of, first of all, it stands for the International Civil Aviation Organization, and they're the governance of aviation. If you think of the FAA, this is just for the United States. ICAO is a global aspect of that works with every state, every CAA, every country to determine the safe and efficient flow of air traffic. And honestly, it's a lot of the rules that come out of the 7110 for the USA, for the FAA, comes out of the FAA guidance and regulations. And that's what ICAO typically is. They're based out of Montreal, Canada. That's where the headquarters is based out of. And we have 7 regional offices across the globe. I'm based in Mexico City, which is fortunate because the weather here is wonderful and the people and the food. But we have numerous offices from Lima, Peru. We have one in Paris, France. We have Dakar in Africa. We have Cairo. We have Beijing, I believe. I'm getting a blank for the other 2, but some in the Asian market.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, ICAO and what FAA does to contribute to that organization. How did your journey in aviation begin?
So like my kids say, back in the 1900s, I started my career in the U.S. Navy. I was a jet mechanic in the military. So I did receive my A&P license as a gas turbine technician. So the love of aviation started at a young age. Being Puerto Rican, I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I spent a lot of time traveling from Philadelphia to Puerto Rico with one of my favorite airlines, Eastern Airlines. Going through that whole process of aviation, I've always been fascinated. My career took a lot of turns, some lateral, some upward, some downward. It was to understand how aviation works. So you can have a technician, the controller, pilot, you can have the dispatcher. They all contribute a different way to work. So started in the military, then I worked for Boeing in Long Beach, California as a jet mechanic. The opportunity came to become an air traffic controller. I went to school in Beaver, Pennsylvania, and got my CTO, got into the FAA in 2003. And first facility was Washington Center in Leesburg, Virginia. And that's how my career started. I worked at Memphis Center, San Juan CRAP, Command Center, FAA headquarters, and now here in Mexico City. Numerous facilities, numerous jobs within those locations.
And what it sounds like from the different places you've been in, the opportunities you've been able to obtain, the FAA has a lot of locations you can live in and grow in your career.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what your passion is. We tend to see what's in front of us, attend conferences or attend certain meetings. You meet someone and you're like, wow, they were working in FAA, they were a controller, they were this, or they were a technician. How did you get to your position? You meet people across the way. And the way that I've always viewed things is like, I always want to give back to make sure like, hey, this is the path, or this is how to get these particular jobs, because it's not really advertised. It's not on USA Jobs to find a job within ICAO. I'm in a special assignment. So that's a way that I would love to share with people, because for this particular position here, they were seeking Spanish-speaking individuals that had traffic management experience, that had the trust of leadership in the FAA, because pretty much you're representing the FAA at some capacity, because people do your research, like, who is this Josue guy? Why is he in Cuba talking about aviation? They know who you are before you even step foot.
Well, you make a great point, because you started your aviation career in the military, and thank you for your service. as an A&P mechanic, and which is an airframe and power plant mechanic for those folks out there. We speak a lot in acronyms. And then you transitioned over to air traffic, right? So, I mean, your path, you went from one side of aviation to the other side of aviation. But one of the places that you did work at is, is the JTOC, if I'm
Yes.
saying the acronym correctly. So
Yes.
can you, tell us what JTOC stands for and about your role there?
JTOC is the Joint Air Traffic Operations Command, and it's based out of the operations floor of Command Center in Warrenton, Virginia. And it's a relatively, I don't even believe it's 10 years old. I believe it started as an executive order to have some type of command and control element within the agency to see if there's a natural disaster or outage. How do we communicate this information up to leadership? I was fortunate to be at that time at Command Center. I was a national operations manager in the command center, and the opportunity was given to me to become the general manager for JTOC. I was the second or third person coming in. The two prior people, Gary Miller in ICAO Paris office today, and Lakeisha Price, VP of System Operations today. So those are the two people that I followed to go into JTOC. And what made JTOC amazing was the vision was to try to get the different elements of the ATO, the Air Traffic Organization, on the ops floor. So when there's an outage or an incident, you have the correct people there to make the decisions and feed leadership informed decisions or information so you can help that process. One example was, I think during 2017, I had the opportunity, and this is when I was a supervisor at Command Center, got a chance to go to Puerto Rico for Hurricane Maria, reporting back to the Command Center. They stood up something similar. It wasn't called JTOC. It was maybe called Incident Center. You know, when there's an actual incident, this is a group of people, and they actually brought individuals down to San Juan, Puerto Rico at the CRAP. And that was kind of almost the beginning of what JTOC became, because now you have all these different lines of businesses from tech ops to air traffic to sysops all sitting there. These are all executives sitting there and trying to figure out the best avenue on how to tackle this and reopen up the airspace in the process. So that was almost the beginning stages of how JTOC was stood up, because I think I was 2018 or 2019 when it was officially stood up on paper in 2017, September 2017, how that was a prime example how important it is to have these individuals. And that made me grow up a lot faster than I wanted to. When I got into the JTOP position, being a GM, I remember this date clearly because the pandemic happened. I get promoted and then a pandemic happens. So you're in charge of contingency and the cleaning of these facilities, the concept of trying to incorporate shutting down airspace, safety of employees, rotational days off. So it taught you to think a little bit different and be more realistic on what's needed to coordinate with not just management, with union officials and having a safety on employees.
While you've had a diverse career in air traffic, much less the previous on the other side of the house of doing in the maintenance of aircraft. But you talked about going into management, and then, of course, you transitioned over and took ICAO. So what inspired you to take your expertise to a global platform like ICAO?
When I worked in San Juan CRAP, that was my first time dealing with foreign facilities and the concept. And one things that I did when I sat there was like, why do we have a bad relationship with St. Martin? Why do we have a bad relationship with Trinidad and Tobago? And like, it was just trying to figure out why is this happening? And me just picking up the phone and just having a conversation with these individuals, they have the same issues we do, just in a different format and a different way that they're dealing with it. So that had me intrigued of international. I'm like, okay, so if I can help them, and then the opportunity to go to Command Center, they convinced me that I can help Puerto Rico more from the Command Center aspect rather than me being in Puerto Rico and trying to help out. So they used me as a mechanism, knowing the Caribbean so well. So they kind of view me as almost like a subject matter expert on airspace, on trying to improve that area. That's how that happened. And then I kind of left away and I worked for mission support. I worked for AGI for safety and training. I did other jobs. And then the opportunity from my old previous executive told me that there's opportunity in Mexico City if you're interested in international work. And I'm like, well, let me ask the boss first. And that's my family, to make sure they'll be even interested to even pick up, because it's not just me, I'm impacting their lives. And since I've been here, they've given me the keys to the cars. It's like, you just go for it. My first meeting was in Cuba, out of all places. 3 months after I touched down in Mexico City, I'm going to Cuba for my first meeting. So it opened up my eyes on how amazing people are with aviation, their passion with aviation, because we all share the same passion, but always wanted to improve with safety. So it's been an amazing experience. And I would highly recommend anyone that wants to do international work to look at ICAO, look at different mechanisms to get in. And if you need, reach out to me. I am more than willing to help you and understand where to find these locations. But I think you'd be surprised of what you've learned and what the FAA has taught you, what you can actually bring to these other states in these meetings on how to approach things. And it can be from union management. People take things for granted, what we're doing, like from even ELMS courses. Like, those are not automatically given to some of the states. There's even some states that will request training from the FAA so they can actually use it in their state for their training purposes. So FAA has resources that other states wish they had. So don't take any of the training that you're taking today for granted.
Well, it definitely sounds like you should almost be retired at this point. You've had such a diverse career in multiple places, which
Pretty
is
close,
totally
pretty close.
amazing. A little bit ago, though, you talked about how you followed in the footsteps of some other individuals in your career. So how would you emphasize the importance of mentorship and professional growth? And how has being a part of the NHC influenced your career and leadership journey?
I think it's very important. I was fortunate to have some individuals throughout my career, because once I transitioned from the union into management, I was kind of to myself. I was like, you know what, I can do things. I didn't want to be tied down to one particular group. I didn't want to be tied into a particular movement, but I always respected every coalition, every group of individuals. I've always seen the Hispanic coalition as a group of individuals. I've always seen it by far. I knew people in the organization, but I felt like I never met the mark of how I can help in that process. It's funny because I went to the one this past year and anyone could have asked me to join, and I was ready to sign my life away because I fell in love with the whole concept of the mentorship, the scholarships, everything that this group does. It made me believe more to what the mission is. And I think mentorship is a really important part of your life DNA, honestly. I was fortunate to be invited to the coalition meeting in San Juan, Puerto Rico this past year. There was part of the agenda about mentorship, and I've volunteered to be on both sides. I've been a mentee, I've been a mentor. It's interesting because I've done coaching. I've used coaching as a mechanism at one point I had 7 coaches. It is no need to have 7 coaches, but I had 7 coaches because I needed to hear a different diversity of group of individuals, not necessarily the same topic, but it can be a different. One was for grieving, one for public speaking, one for career progression. So I had different, even though it's all tied in together, it's good to hear different individuals, male and female, to influence on if you're thinking clearly. And through the coalition that I just joined recently, I've always seen it from afar, always respected the process. I was always afraid to see what I can actually bring to the table. And of course, now you look back and like, I could have done so much more. I have to recoup everything I've missed to the people for the future of aviation. I think even when you don't think you can be a mentor, you'd be surprised of there's people that may need just to have that open conversation. Because even today, before this meeting, I have a mentee that's out of the tech center that we met. He interviewed me, we hit it off, and, we communicate through not just official form conversation that we set time, but through WhatsApp, through text messages, through anything, because I don't want him to feel that I'm just doing this just for like a period of time on my calendar for a week. I might actually want to know what's going on, because everything that's happening outside of your personal or your work life is impacted somehow, some way. So we have that good relationship now that we do message each other with anything. It's always good to have that third party that don't know your situation intimately, but can actually still provide you good guidance on like, hey, this is how you should approach it, or this is how it's mentorship and coaching. They don't want to hear the word therapy because it's not therapy, but it is a way that you can actually communicate and see if that works out. So I applaud the coalition taking that ownership and wanting to improve that, because my kids have coaching and they're teenagers. They have mentors that's not their parents, just because you want to make sure that they're not just hearing it from the parents, they're hearing it from someone else that can help them along the way. Our conversation is going to impact my life. Certain words that you say, I'm like, you know what, that's actually a pretty good approach on that. So that's how mentorship, and the important part is diversity on trying to get different opinions from different people. It's okay. It's ownership on, it's okay to be wrong and right. It's about the actions that you do after.
Right. And I mean, to piggyback on what you're saying, the coalition provides an excellent opportunity to meet people that you would never touch in your lives if it wasn't through an organization such as
Yeah.
this. And just this conversation will hopefully provide someone some mentorship, right? Informally,
Yeah.
to help them grow and develop in their own careers. So you kind of touched on it a minute ago, but about the next generation. What advice would you give someone as they enter their journey into aviation?
Don't be afraid to learn and to challenge yourself, because like for me, it was always trying to understand the inner workings of why does like, for example, for the FAA, like, you see a project being stood up and you see it shut down. Okay, why is it shut down? Is it budgeted? How do you budget for that? So now you start going down that path and like, so how do you budget? How can you protect this particular project or program to make sure it's protected moving forward? So for future leaders, aviators, non-aviators, I honestly think don't be afraid to ask that question. It's okay. There's always someone in that room that's willing to help. You'd be surprised where you get help from whenever you have an incident or an accident or anything, because we all have that one person that, like, if something life event happens and you get a phone call, like, hey, I just want to call and check on you. It's so going along those lines. And of course, honestly, don't forget where you came from, because a lot of people put a lot of effort in you and your successfulness in life, not just your parents and your family, your friends, your coworkers, your friends. Everything has a tribute. That's why I call it life DNA. You have influenced my work and personal life. Do not forget where you came from and always give back, because there's always that one person that you may shift their mind. Like, you know what, I could be doing that, or I can be doing. I never thought about going that approach. Just like when people ask me about going into management, it's like I'd say, if you can influence in any level. You don't have to be in management. You don't have to be in a union. You can be in any situation and still provide positive influence. No path is the right path. My path was my path, but take ownership to your path and don't be afraid to jump out. The only wrong decision is the one that you regret making, because you can always make that next decision. You can always make it better for yourself. How can I make this position better? How can I put my touch on it and enjoy this work? Future leaders, hats to you. I'm amazed because of the technology that's out there, the speed of work, the things that were set in place. Because I always say, like, a lot of manuals, a lot of things were written in blood. A lot of accidents happen to prevent future people not to make the same mistake. Be curious, have fun. You don't put on a special cape to come to work and take it off when you go home. That's the same cape. You're the same individual. So please be that same individual. regardless of what position you're in. And you'd be surprised of how people will embrace that personality and what you bring to the table.
That is excellent advice. I got to meet in August and then I met your boss in September, your wife. So it has truly been amazing to hear your story and meet your better half. Your story is amazing. And I'm sure someone out there will be inspired to say, oh, wow, I can do that too, right?
Yeah.
Take this long journey and look at all the opportunities and places you've got to see that who knows how life would have worked out and whether or not you would have had those opportunities and experiences. So do you have any last words before we close out for today?
Truly, it was an honor to be part of this process. And I look forward to continuing this work with you. Anything I can bring to you guys, anything you need to ask, anything I can do, like, don't be afraid. I think what you're doing with these podcasts and trying to get it out to the world, because I've even advertised with my groups. I asked Oscar, do you have to be a federal employee to join the coalition? And it's almost like a blessing of what happened this past year. Now you can actually open up to many other avenues of not just the federal employees. You can actually dive into this particular region. I'm in Central America and South America and many other places, because I think you guys provide so much influence and guidance and information for the younger generation and even for the current generation, since I am towards the end of my career, since you did bring that up earlier. But I'm not going anywhere because I still want to actually help individuals reach out. And my bid will be coming out for this position sometime next year. So they will be seeking for individuals to come. And this job is pretty amazing. Get to travel, do a lot of work and influence with these states on trying to be more efficient and safer with air travel. And there's other opportunities. Doesn't have to necessarily be air traffic centric. There's other opportunities in Montreal, Canada, and also in other offices that have different skill sets, from tech ops to computer engineers, anything that's related to that the FAA can provide. So it's not just one avenue with aviation, it's multiple. But I'll end it at that.
All right. I was joking about retiring because you don't seem at all possible to be at the complete end, but I'm right behind you. So, to all our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this. You always hit the follow and subscribe button. And if you want more information about the National Hispanic Coalition, please visit us at www.nhcfae.org to learn about membership, mentorship, and opportunities to grow in aviation. Have a great day.